Good to see you, and thank you for joining me. I want just to share a little bit with you today on the subject of giving, Christian giving, worshipping the Lord with the particular part of our money that we choose to give directly to His work. He calls us by His grace and gratitude for His gospel to worship Him with all that we have, including what is spent or saved or used in whatever way. And He calls us as part of that worship to give a fitting portion to Him for the direct work of His kingdom. And I suppose for most of us, we do the majority of that giving within the context of our own congregation. It's free will offering, United Appeal, Property Fund, various other aspects of its work that are supported financially. This is, I would say, the subject that I am least comfortable about addressing as a preacher. I rejoice in preaching. I absolutely love it. I can't wait to get back to doing it with people physically present. I even enjoy doing it in this kind of context too, and I am of course committed to saying anything that the Bible says. But I should be honest about the fact that I find this subject one that if I could avoid talking about it, I think I would. Once I've recorded this video, in a moment or two's time, I hope to record a video for my good friend and colleague Seamus Burke as part of the series of devotions that he's doing on the Psalms. And I'm going to be doing one on Psalm 58, which you might know is what is sometimes referred to as an imprecatory psalm. That is a psalm where the psalmist prays for God's judgment to fall on other people. Now that's not an easy thing to get your head around. That's not an easy sort of subject for a preacher to try to address, and perhaps in a sense it's all the harder to address in a virtual context where you don't know exactly who's going to listen to it, and as your words are coming out you can't gauge by the mood of the room or the expression in people's faces whether what you're saying is coming across in quite the way you want it to or not. So I suppose naturally enough I have a certain amount of fear and trepidation in talking about such a subject, particularly into a camera rather than the people face to face. And yet I think of the two videos that I hope to record in this sitting, this one about giving is the one that makes me feel a little more uneasy. For the simple reason that the reality is folk in my congregations in Hilltown and Clonduff are very, very generous. They are willing to commit themselves to the work of the Lord in a financial way, and although I know the folk in Guildford and Tullylesh less well than I know my own folk, of course, I know there are many generous folk there too, and thank God for that, and I encourage you and commend you for it. I'm a bit uneasy because the reality is that if that generous giving of the good people of Hilltown and Clonduff were for some reason to cease or at least significantly reduce, that would obviously at some stage have personal implications for me. No point pretending that it wouldn't. If for some reason folk would suddenly become unwilling to give, or if, as in a real sense might happen as a result of this pandemic and lockdown and the likely economic recession that many say is coming on the back of it, folk were to simply have less from which to give, well of course that could have a knock-on effect for me, and I want to be a million miles away from even the slightest suggestion of sounding like I'm trying to make sure I have enough for myself or line my own pockets. God keep me from ever being any way close to such a preacher. I think I mentioned probably in the first service in April that I am not personally massively keen on electronic giving. I did do it in the past for a while, and there was good reason actually for doing it at that time that I don't really need to go into at the minute, and I do it at the minute for one charity, which is, or a couple of charities, which is the smaller part of my Christian giving. Most of what I give goes in envelopes that are placed on the plate either in Clonduff or in Hilltown, and so now I'm in the situation where I think I've probably got 9 or 10 envelopes tucked away in the bedroom drawer with the various weeks and the various months United Appeal offering in them, and I hope, God willing, to be able to deposit them all on a plate on a Sunday morning in the not too distant future. If people were to want to give electronically, of course, that's perfectly proper and legitimate. The reason personally that I would prefer not to is that it's just a bit too easy. You can give without even noticing it, and that's why I don't want to do it. Maybe in a sense I'm not mature enough to do it. I need the conscious effort of noticing that income is in my bank account, going to a cash machine, lifting the cash, putting it in the envelope, writing on the amount, and bringing it in the context of public worship and giving it with my brothers and sisters for the work of the Lord. I'm sure it is perfectly possible to put your heart into electronic giving, but I find that having to make the effort of lifting the money makes it easy, or easier for me to put my heart into it and to do it consciously and cheerfully and with a good will by God's help. And that, I suppose, is what I want to encourage you to think about today. We may well be on the cusp of a very different world, and the financial ramifications for us all, ministers, farmers, builders, people of all walks and backgrounds, might be very significant. I want to encourage myself and yourself to think not only about what is easiest or most convenient, but to think about what is most honouring to God. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. By God's grace, may I and may you resolve with his help that whatever way things turn out, we're going to honour him with all that we have, including our finances. Glory and praise be to his holy name. Amen.